Okay, so it's been almost 30 years since the last Bill and Ted movie came out, which means that every guy who was born at that time is now well on their way to have as much hair and money as they did when the last movie was released. It also means it's time for a recap, starting with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Bill S. Preston, Esquire, and Ted Theodore Logan are high school friends and members of the two-man band, the Wild Stallions, not to be confused with Russian punk band, the Wild Stallions. In the future, their music and philosophy become so inspiring that the world turns into a utopia and everyone dresses like it's 1984. Unfortunately, there are two things standing in the way: their music inability and their academic inability. If they fail a history class, Ted's dad will send him to military school, separating the duo and halting worldwide peace. Not to worry, because George Carlin is here to save the day. As Rufus, he travels back in time using a TARDIS to help Bill and Ted pass history class before they become history. He shows them how the phone booth travels through time, and they use it to kidnap historical figures for their history class final. They also meet Princess Elizabeth and Princess Joanna, who later become members of the Wild Stallions. So while everyone in history class makes boring presentations at the podium, Bill and Ted have a full-blown presentation with historical figures such as Billy the Kid, Socrates, Joan of Arc, and Abraham Lincoln. Bill and Ted pass history class and world peace is back on track, but not for long, because in Bill and Ted's bogus journey, they had to face a villain far worse than a failing grade: an old gym teacher. Chuck the Nomalos, Rufus's old gym teacher, now turned terrorist, wants to change the timeline because he hates Bill and Ted and what they stand for. So he decides to fight fire with fire and makes evil robot replicas, which he sends back in time to stop the real Bill and Ted from winning the San Dimas Battle of the Bands. Rufus tries to catch a ride in the magic mystery box, but he seemingly gets lost on the way. Back in the present, the Wild Stallions audition for Battle of the Bands, but they're terrible. However, the lady in charge of the show lets them play as the final act because, according to her, hardly anyone will be watching by then, insulting headliners everywhere. Soon after, the evil doppelgangers arrive and kill Bill and Ted by throwing them off a cliff. In the afterlife, the now dead Bill and Ted meet Death, who says he can revive them if they beat him at a game of their choosing. Instead, they give him a wedgie and run away to Ted's place, where his stepmom and her friends accidentally exorcise them all the way to hell. After a super trippy experience where they had to escape from a military officer, Bill's granny, and the Energizer Bunny, Bill and Ted realize the only way out is to beat Death. So they challenge him to Battleship and win. But Death is a sore loser and keeps increasing the number of games they had to win. So they challenge him to Clue, Electric Football, and Twister, beating him every time. Finally, Death gives up and is now totally their bitch forever. Before they return home, Bill and Ted come up with a plan to beat the evil robots, make their own robots. So Death takes them to God, who points them to Station, the greatest scientist in the universe. Station helps them build their good robot clones, and they head off to Battle of the Bands to defeat the evil robots and save the princesses, which they easily do, Rock'em Sock'em style. Finally, the Anomalous shows up and hacks all television communications worldwide, so everyone can witness him killing Bill and Ted. Afterwards, a battle of imaginary time travel ensues, where they all try to outwit each other by imagining what they could do in the future to stop their enemy now, such as setting up a cage trap, a hideaway key, and a fake gun. Ultimately, Bill and Ted win, and the Anomalous goes to jail. The lady in charge of the Battle of the Bands is none other than Rufus, which explains how they got accepted in the first place. Now, thanks in part to the Anomalous, they can play in front of the whole world and spread their message. Unfortunately, they're still terrible, so they take the TARDIS and practice for 16 months, immediately coming back with more skills, more facial hair, and more babes. They closed the show to widespread acclaim and tour the world, little by little creating the utopia of the future. They bring peace to the Middle East, recycle nuclear arsenals as fuel amplifiers, and even play on Mars. And that's the movie. So the question is, how does this tie into Bill and Ted Face the Music? And the answer is, I don't have a fucking clue. We just saw them achieve a number of goals that led to world peace. But in Face the Music, it looks like they haven't achieved anything. Which means Face the Music will either deal with alternate realities, some clever mental gymnastics, or simply a big FU to the canon story. Either way, if it follows the same type of comedy as its predecessors, Bill and Ted Face the Music should be funny and entertaining. However, if you're planning on rewatching the original movies, keep in mind that some of their humor is outdated and downright offensive. But if you can overlook it, then this should be an enjoyable experience. Most importantly,
be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes!
I'm as high as hell, and you're about to get shot. I'm as high as hell, and you're about to get shot.